I'm going to call the Board of Supervisors to order. Ms. Moran, may we have a roll call, please?
Yes. Supervisor Giomi.
I'm here.
Supervisor White.
Here.
Supervisor Jones. Supervisor Schutte. Mayor Bagwell.
Here.
A quorum's present.
Thank you so much. Let me turn on everything. We're now going to go to our invocation. We have the wonderful Pastor Haskins with us this morning.
Thank you, Lori. Let's pray. Loving Heavenly Father, what a beautiful day we are blessed with, and we know that this is the day that you have made. May we see it as a gift and embrace it fully and take advantage of every opportunity that comes our way. I pray for our mayor and the supervisors that you grant them a degree of wisdom, that they would make good decisions on behalf of this community that would benefit all who live here greatly. In Jesus' name, amen.
Thank you so much. Would you do us the honor of leading us in the pledge?
Sure. If we would, let's do the pledge now. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you so much. Okay, we're going to move on to agenda item number 5, which is public comment. Do I have anyone on the phone?
There are no callers on the line at this time.
Thank you so much. Then we're going to move to the sign-in sheet, and the first on the list is Mr. French. Because you signed in first. I need an order.
Mayor, Supervisors, Denny French, Carson City, Nevada. Thank you very much for having us have this opportunity. I have to say right off the bat that I am against this location for the slaughterhouse, and I would like to thank Planner Commissioner Nathaniel Kilgar for his being able to really take a stand. That was probably very difficult for him. The next thing I'd like to do is to tell people how much I appreciate the Carson City Conservative Subservient. I'm sorry, I had it right this morning when I was practicing. Carson City Water Conservancy District. Thank you. And let you know, I think they really shouldn't have to sort of fuss to try to get grants, that our taxes should really provide them with much more of their basic financial concerns and needs, and that I think that we should have the governor talk to the president, if necessary, to suggest that if the feds still keep dumping trash, especially weapon-grade nuclear waste in Nevada, we want to be compensated. I'd love my property tax to go down. So I would love my property tax to go more to people like these individuals that work their butts off. They're amazing. And the main thing, too, is that while I do appreciate and respect the commissioners for the planning, I do not feel they were really attentive to the testimony. Their statements suggested that they had determined their decision before even anybody spoke for or against it. And I understand weighing and balancing things, but I do not feel that all these places have to give up their natural beauty, insect homes, and all the things, natural filter to our aquifers. We're losing all of that. And the things that we're thinking are, I know you're watching the time, shame on you. No, okay, but you should. I get to rattle. But the main thing is, I think that we should put more attention to what we're asking our developers to use as far as materials, our construction people, bring them up to date on the newest and greatest opportunities. They've got an installation now that if it gets wet, you pull it out of your house, you wash the darn stuff up, you put it back up after it dries. I don't think we're keeping up with that. I also think that we could be generating a great deal of local electricity just from the water flow. This old house had a program where a house was able to have its electrical backup for its emergency systems run on their own water, the water that comes through their pipes in their house.
Thank you, Denny.
Thank you.
Thank you. And if you have additional comments, anyone, you can always write them to us also. We read, I promise you, we read everything, so
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you. Should I leave it on?
The next person will come, yes. Next on the list, I have Joan Buchanan. We'll try. Everybody's voice is a little bit different. They have different tones, but we'll give it a shot. Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
We could hear Denny too, so,
Oh,
but I think they want to hear it in the back,
No,
right?
it's the reverberation, I think, from the microphone. Good morning. I am Joan Buchanan, a longtime resident of Carson City. I am here to verbalize my opposition to the proposed slaughterhouse. Over the years, Carson has grown with the goal remaining, I hope, while growing to retain quality of life, a healthy environment, and remain a desirable place to live. The proposed slaughterhouse location is not appropriate for Carson City. Some concerns include the potential harm to wetlands and impact on our environment, including the Mexican Dam, ditch trail, potential harm to groundwater, and wells. Concern also include the proposal itself. At the Planning Commission meeting, one commissioner verbalized would not process more than 60 animals per week, but did not mention the exceptions to allow 3 times a year when 120 animals would be processed or harvested. Also, there is no limit on game to be processed. Why not? Game also has remains and wasting. Where is the manure wasted to be transported? What different types of animals will they have separate containment within this proposed indoor facility? Another commissioner related how good the wolf pack facility in Reno. However, he went not on a harvesting day and verbalized no concern, which is a positive factor actually for the wolf pack facility. I have no concerns with that. However, this facility is a university-operated teaching facility as well as a working facility. And in my opinion, it's not an adequate comparison. You're comparing 2 different objects. The location of the wolf pack facility in Reno should also be considered in looking at this companion. Look at the location. It is not similar in distance from downtown. It is not similar to major highways and growing residential facilities. At the Planning Commission meeting, it was verbalized by some that another slaughterhouse is needed in the area. Although Carson Valley Meats did not receive approval in Douglas County for a slaughterhouse, it is my understanding another provider has been approved for a slaughterhouse in a more appropriate location. Carson City is my community, and I often do think about the slaughterhouse and do not think it's appropriate. I want to thank you for your time. One of the things, and this is an addition, I just looked at the statement that was out here from one of the city attorneys. I'm sorry to say that it's in an idealistic society as Carson, that someone concerned about Carson City is not considered appropriate to submit a concern.
Thank you so much. Next on the list, I see that it will be Glenn Connett. Good morning, Glenn.
Mayor, Supervisors, my name is Glenn Conant, Empire Ranch, and I oppose the Highway 50 location for the slaughterhouse. I'm about a half a mile as a crow flies from this location. The master plan term of mixed-use commercial seems to justify a special use permit. There are homes about 700 feet from the proposed project. The term mixed land use seems to mean you may build anything on the proposed site. I'd like to remind you what else the master plan states that seems to be ignored. Guiding Principle 9, the city will also work to maintain the quality and character of established neighborhoods. So if approved, you're saying the quality and character of this established neighborhood is a slaughterhouse? It says compatibility of infill and redevelopment. The quality and character of established neighborhoods will be maintained. How's a slaughterhouse compatible with residents only 700 feet away? Land use friction zones, discouraging rezoning of properties that create friction zones. The example is placing incompatible land uses such as industrial and residential adjacent to one another. It also speaks of protection against decreased property values. What good is this master plan when pieces of it are being picked out to justify an applicant's needs and all other protections for established neighborhoods are ignored? There's a residential neighborhood of color in close proximity of this site, 700 feet if that measurement is accurate. I'm very concerned approval of this permit is setting up the city, my city, for a discrimination lawsuit. Some of the folks in this mobile home park have lived there over 20 years. They're not renters. Over 20 years ago, the city decided it was okay to allow a residential neighborhood to be constructed there. Unfortunately, you have to live with that decision, and you can't ignore the families that live there. Hypothetically, let's reverse this proposal. Let's say the slaughterhouse is in place and I want to build a residential mobile home park next to it. I'm really certain it would not be approved because it doesn't make sense. So why is it okay to approve this permit? And who's going to benefit from this slaughterhouse? I drive around Carson City and I see ranch land almost gone. And it seems to me the only ones that will benefit from this project will be folks that are not from Carson City. There is an option, though, that will make everybody happy. If this butcher shop is so important, then put it on the site and move the slaughterhouse out to the industrial area where it is not near any established neighborhood. If they can truck all those animals in from all over for the slaughterhouse, then they can truck skinned carcasses 5 to 10 minutes away from the industrial area to the butcher shop. I ask you do what's right for the neighborhood residents and deny this proposal. Douglas County did with the blessing of the Supreme Court. Sometimes things are not a good fit, sometimes they're not compatible, sometimes you have to say no. This is one of those times, so please deny this application.
Thank you, Mr. Connett. Next on the list is, I think, a family, so if they want to come up together, they can. The Ortizes. Morning. Good morning.
My name is Cancer Ortiz. I'm 13 years old and I participate in Grange, and I'm president of our 4-H club. I raise dairy goats, market goats, and poultry. Considering that you can't sell goat's milk in Nevada, the market goats are the main source of income for my projects. As of right now, our closest processing facility is in Reno. When I sell my market animals, I like it to be as convenient as possible for my buyer. So the closer processing facility will help my buyer and the other buyers out. Another matter is that the market animals from local shows have to travel to Reno, so the closer processing facility will help to minimize the traveling stress for the animals. The Carson Valley Meats Processing Facility will be a huge help to the youth that raise animals, as well as local farmers and ranchers. Thank you for listening, and please vote yes for Carson Valley Meats.
Thank you so much. Go ahead.
I'm James Ortiz. I'm 10 years old, and I am a farmer.
There you go.
And I am in strong support of.
Start over.
I'm James Ortiz. I am 10 years old. I'm a farmer, and I am in strong support of this facility. I raise poultry and goats. This is the belt buckle I won for having the best looking bird, which is my pet duck, Kaleidoscope. This is my belt buckle I won for having the best looking meat pen of chickens, which we sold for food. I also raise meat goats. Right now I can't sell a goat for meat because it is too tough to get on the list for processing. So I have to wait for a fair. This makes it tough because I can only sell one goat at a time. So all my other goats have to be sold as pets or breeding animals. I can sell a goat for $200 to $250, which is great, but having a processing facility, I can charge by the pound, which will get me $300 to $500. All the money that I earn goes into my college fund. Carson Valley Meats would help me by having more options for selling my animals, making it easier to raise more. Please vote yes on Carson Valley Meats. Thank you.
Thank you. And then, did you have testimony?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Nancy,
So-
start.
I just wanted to say thank you first and foremost. I can't imagine the position that all of you guys are in. You guys are kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place, and I really respect all of you, no matter your decision. I'm Carrie Ann Ortiz. I am a 4-H leader here in Carson City and a Grange leader here in Carson City. I was born at Carson Tahoe, as were my kids. I've been here my whole life. I teach youth to grow their own food. With this, they learn business skills, animal husbandry, veterinary skills, new ways to create the future that they want to live. I want you guys to all think about the earliest memories you had of Carson City. I remember when there was more farmland. We had fewer subdivisions, fewer golf courses, restaurants, stores, and a lot more animals. As the years went on, more and more people wanted to move to our beautiful area. And slowly we've changed. Agriculture is fading, and more homes are being constructed in its place. The first time we had the meeting about Carson Valley Meats, the commissioners voted yes to fund more money towards the greenhouse project at the high school. Those youth are learning how to grow food and learning sustainability. Looking from Google Earth and driving by in person, there are roughly 60 homes that may or may not be affected by the slaughterhouse going in. There are roughly 300 youth in the FFA projects in Carson City high schools. In my 4-H and Grange program, I run 3 clubs. I have 65 youth spanning 3 counties. What happens when one of these youth want to be a farmer in our area? There's no land and no way to sell their stock to make a living. We'll have to pick new career paths, move out of the area. What happens to those farmers who have already had to make this tough decision and sell their land because they have no place to process their animals and no resources in the area? Now think about our current shortages and meat prices. Our meat has increased almost by 20% in the last year. All of our meat prices have gone up because slowly farmers are being pushed out. Our resources are going away. Beef at Costco last night, $9 a pound. That was fantastic. If you guys buy from a local farmer, we can utilize and bring down the costs even more by buying locally. Fake meat is becoming the new norm. Meat grown in a lab in the Petri dish is coming to your local grocery stores and fast food restaurants. We need Carson Valley Meats so we have local sustainability, local meat, and continue to support local farmers. We need Carson Valley Meats so my family can continue to farm. And lastly, we need Carson Valley Meats so I can continue to teach the youth in our community about a lifestyle that can benefit them for a lifetime. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Next on the list, I show Paula Peters.
Hi, Paula Peters here. I'm going to read the letter that I mailed you all a week ago, but first I want to make a comment. At the Planning Commission meeting, a couple people spoke about how we really need Carson Valley meats so that we have access to fresh local produce, meat. Well, I just wanted to remind everybody that Eagle Valley Livestock on Carson River Road in Carson City raises and slaughters their own meat on site. So you can get meat, honey, eggs, you can get everything from this place. Whereas the Carson Valley meats will be having a lot of meat, but a lot of that will be from Douglas County. So I just don't think it's right. Anyway, here's the letter I wrote. I'm sorry, I'm nervous. Okay, many residents, including myself, voiced valid concerns about the proposed slaughterhouse location at the Planning Commission meeting. It appeared that all the commissioners had made up their minds and many had written their closing statements before the meeting started. 5 of the 6 commissioners disregarded most of the public comments in opposition of the proposed location and voted to approve the special use permit. Both the Douglas County Planning Commissioners and Board of Supervisors listened to their residents' concerns over the Carson Valley Meats proposal to build a slaughterhouse in Centerville, a ranching community south of Gardnerville. They found their concerns were valid and voted to deny the Carson Valley Meats special use permit. Gardnerville-based Carson Valley Meats then applied for a special use permit to build their slaughterhouse in Carson City. Guy Farmer was quoted in the Nevada Appeal, once again, why should we do Douglas Carson's dirty work by allowing that county's ranchers to slaughter their animals in our beautiful Eagle Valley? Most of the cows are in Douglas County. We don't need this kind of ugly economic development. I question the logic of having cows trucked in from out-of-town rural areas to be slaughtered in our urban capital city. However, my immediate concern is the granting of a special use permit to allow Carson Valley Meats to build their slaughterhouse near residential neighborhoods and mobile parks within our city limits. Ms. Sinclair of Carson Valley Meats applied to the Supreme Court of Nevada to appeal the decision by Douglas County to not approve and issue her a special use permit to build a slaughterhouse in Centerville. Earlier this month, the Nevada Supreme Court denied her appeal and wrote that her due process of law was not violated because the board is allowed to consider public comment when reaching a decision. It was heartening to learn that the highest court in Nevada ruled those residential concerns about noise, odors, wastewater disposal, bugs and pests, loss of property value, and air quality were valid concerns and supported by substantial evidence. Many of us in Carson City share the same concerns. We also believe that the proposed slaughterhouse is in violation of numerous sections of the Carson City General Plan. Park Ranch Holdings in Douglas County was granted a special use permit to build a slaughterhouse on Buckeye Ranch in Minden. There are sewer system conditions that must be met.
Thank you so
Thank you.
much. Thank you, and we did have that one in writing that we've also read, just for the record. Next that has requested to testify is Anna Winston. This one? That's fine. Good morning, Anna.
Good morning. My name is Anna Winston. My husband and I live in Empire Ranch Estates for 18 years. We oppose the slaughterhouse location for many reasons. The Villa Sierra mobile home community is about 500 feet from the proposed site. Did you know that this is a community of 95% Latinos? A couple of my friends, neighbors, walked and talked to most of the residents there. I speak Spanish. English is my second language. This is the information gathered. There are 42 occupied mobile homes. All mobile homes are owned. There's no rentals. These are longtime residents. Some have been there 20 years. The average have been there 7 to 10 years or less. There are 73 children that we counted that opened the door. So there's more than 73 children. Some people were not there, they were working or whatever. Most households have 3 to 4 adults. All residents of age signed the petition against the location of the slaughterhouse. 2 did not because they were concerned about possible problems. Would you like to live 500 feet from the slaughterhouse, possible odor, pollution, the cries of stressed animals during this process? This community was not taken into consideration. They did not matter. Furthermore, it's a floodplain area. The water and waste can travel down the slope to Morgan Mill into the floodplains. And Carson City, I have videos to prove it. Do we want possible water spills, waste, chemical contamination, contaminating the environment and animals? The unprotected wetlands will be altered or destroyed. Furthermore, what will happen to our property values? I asked this in our first meeting. No one could answer that question. It also violates Master Plan Goal 9.3B, maintaining the quality and character of established neighborhoods. It will negatively affect the Empire Ranch community, August Drive, Sunrise Drive, and Villa Sierra Mobile Home Park, 2 golf courses, several sports fields, and the recreation of Carson River and the environment. Villa Sierra Mobile community does not matter. They don't have a voice. This is discrimination. I asked the Board of Supervisors
for your
not
public comment. Thank you.
to vote for this. Thank you.
Thank you. Just for the record, Cheryl Rockwood indicated that she is against the project but does not wish testimony, but to enter to the record her voice against it. The next on the list is Rakow? Rakow? Okay. Thank you. Good morning.
Just on?
It is.
Yeah, my name is Roger Rakow. I lived here since 1970. And I've seen a lot of things going on. And I've always leaned towards the cosmetic of the town. Beautification. Everybody went up there and worked on the Capitol building and made it nice and pretty, you know. And we live in a capital town right now. Some crap like this coming in here is not going to work very good. People coming in here all the time, seeing a slaughterhouse over there, is not going to be very impressive for people to come back, you know. And we're trying to make the streets up there nice and pretty and redo them all. And then all we get is people wanting to put this slaughterhouse in here. And that's not right, you know. And every time I come into a meeting like this, everybody looks at everybody, you know, and everything. And then, yeah, you know, you already got your minds made up what you want to do, you know. But the practicality of the whole thing is the land's not suitable down there. I don't know if you've ever been down there, but that's not suitable for any kind of slaughterhouse. There's not enough room. Got a big draw there, about 10 feet deep, with water running through it year-round. And they're going to probably close that in with some kind of big drainage structure or something, you know, and seal it off, but and put something there so debris won't go in there, but then that could plug up too, you know, during a good flood. We have floods around here once in a while. So I'm thinking that maybe use it like a cosmetic type thing here for the town and try to do something for the town other than having a slaughterhouse out here. You know what I mean? I know y'all looking at me like, you know, you all got your minds made up what you want to do. I know I've been in these meetings before. And I think you ought to rethink this thing real seriously. It's not just the slaughterhouse is not something that's gonna be a big draw for money, lots of money for the town. And we don't need the money for the town. There's plenty of money here. All we gotta do is stabilize the town a little bit, and we're gonna have the money to do what we need to do. And I don't know if anybody knows how to stabilize a town, but you gotta go through the thing and rebudget everything, and you can't start shifting money back and forth from the treasurer and into other projects. That stays in that project. And I've been around a long time, and I know what's going on. I've been around CPAs, I've been around everybody. I know all the angles, and I know how people operate, so I'm thinking maybe we ought to just shut this thing down and look at the cosmetics of the town.
Thank you so much. I don't have anyone else signed up for the, for testimony this morning, but just one last call. Excuse me? Oh, I'm sorry. Come on. Absolutely. That's why I make an announcement, just in case.
Madam Mayor, I had a question. I'll be speaking later at 5 p.m. Am I allowed to make a comment now, or do I say?
You may have your 3 minutes as public comment. That's allowed for everyone. If you want to take 3 minutes now and do it again tonight, do it.
Hi, my name is Kendra Wilson. I live in Carson City, and I've got my business here. I've been to the previous 2 meetings with the planning commissioners as well. And I oppose the slaughterhouse, and I think that you all should too. I think if what we're trying to do is make Carson City the best place it can be for residents, for people visiting, for outdoor recreation, a slaughterhouse is not the way to do that. I was disappointed, of course, with the majority of the planning commissioners. I kind of agree with the sentiment you've already heard, that public comment wasn't really respected, considered maybe is the better word. It's clear to me that the residents of Carson City oppose the slaughterhouse, and the people that are really for the slaughterhouse are ranchers from out of town. So I just really hope that the Board of Supervisors here is going to put more weight on the comment from your residents, and just show some pride in Carson City and reject this location for the slaughterhouse. And that's all I've got.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, so do I have anyone else?
Yes, my name is Cheryl Rookwood, and I initially said I didn't want to speak, but may I?
Microphone, please.
Absolutely. Come on up. I did put your name on the record, just so you know.
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
Good morning, everyone. Is this live?
It is.
Okay. I didn't want to speak because hopefully you've read my emails.
We have.
Oh, I'm Cheryl Rookwood, and I'm a resident here of Carson City. So thank you for reading my emails, and I echo a lot of the people that are opposed to this location. And I really do hope that you pay attention to your community, who is really saying why they don't want this and why we feel that it's inappropriate. It seems to me it could be somewhere else. Some of the things that are mentioned, that livestock is coming from other areas here, keep it and do it down there where you live and you ranch. So anyway, I just wanted to say again that I do oppose this, and I thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there Miss Vivra? Probably pronounced that wrong. Doesn't matter which one. No, I'm writing you down on my list.
Do you need me to spell? Hi, I'm Dr. Jennifer Verive, Verive. I will be speaking with you later this evening, and I'm looking forward to that. Bob and I have substantive information to share with you for our appeal. But I wanted to take a moment now because I just read the late material, and I wanted to express how disappointed I am in our Assistant District Attorney, Mr. Reese's conclusion that Doreen Mack does not have standing. Doreen Mack is one of our community leaders. She has been honored as one of the most influential and actively concerned citizens in our community. And she, I believe, has a unique perspective given the kinds of work she's done in our community. In my opinion, she absolutely has standing because this facility isn't just about my neighborhood. It definitely is going to have the most significant impact on us. It's about our entire community. It's at our eastern gateway where people are going back and forth to Virginia City and Fallon, driving the loneliest highway, all that stuff. It's relevant to everyone in this community. I've lived here for 20 years. I'm raising my child here. I lived most of that time in downtown. So I know about all the people that came for the wine walks and all the historical stuff. I've been actively involved in our community too. And so I hope that Madam Mayor and the rest of you will allow Ms. Mack to make her comments this evening. I know that her comments are short. She's told me, hey, don't talk too long, you'll bore them. I'm like, I'm gonna have to talk longer. So my comments are a little longer than a few minutes, but I'm just here to ask you please to listen to Ms. Mack and consider what she has to say.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. So is there anyone else that I've missed? Okay. Thank you all very much for your respectfulness. I really appreciate it. Okay, we're going to move on to agenda item number 6, which is approval of our January 6th, 2022 minutes. Does anyone have any corrections? If not, I'll accept a motion, please.
I move to approve the Carson City Board of Supervisors meeting minutes as presented for the January 6th, 2022 meeting.
I have a motion and a second for approval of the minutes of January 6th, 2022. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, say no. Motion carried unanimously. Thank you. We'll now move to our consent agenda. Does any member of the board want an item pulled from consent? If not, please reflect on item 10A. It is 2022-R-5. With that, I'll accept a motion.
I move to approve the consent agenda consisting of items 7A, 8A, 9A, 9B, 10A, which has resolution 2022-R5,
Did you get 8B?
and 8B.
Okay, thank you. As published. Okay. Do I have a second?
I second.
I have a motion and a second for the approval of the consent agenda. All of those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, say no. Motion carried unanimously. Thank you. All right, we are now going to go, he's waiting right there for us, to item 12A, which is discussion and possible action on introducing on first reading a proposed ordinance to amend our general administrative provisions for our municipal code. We have with us the distinguished Jason Woodbury, our district attorney. Thank you.
I hope I can live up to that.
I know you can.
Jason Woodbury, Carson City District Attorney for the record. I am very excited and pleased to be able to present this particular item to you. This is the first substantive step in the code revision project that we are bringing to you here today. We've been working on this behind the scenes and in some private meetings for quite a period of time. You've seen some display of our work in public meetings with Title 18 as we work through that. But we're in a position today where I can tell you that I think this is going to be the first in a series of presentations that you'll be seeing over the coming months and years in reality. Where we're really looking at substantive improvements to the code. So I'd just like to, it is not my intent, subject to the mayor's redirecting me, to go through each individual provision of what's presented to you here today. I did want to offer a couple introductory remarks in overview of what's being presented. And the first is to let you know that there is no substantive policy change in any of the revisions that are presented to you today. Down the line, other code titles, there will be, but there is nothing substantive changing with the code today. There's no policy decision to make, no rights being modified or people being prohibited from doing one thing or another. So what we have tried to do in the amendments where we have existing provisions that are amended, we're making an effort to model the language and the style for the Carson City Code, Municipal Code, to be that of Nevada revised statutes. That makes a lot of sense. It's a tried and true method. It's a tried and true structure. So that's what we're trying to mimic as best we can. So there is an amendment to language, but there is no intended amendment to any substance. The other thing I wanted to point out in introduction is something that's new in the provisions we're drafting. You haven't seen it before. It hasn't been done before. And as a matter of fact, in Dan and my research, we haven't found another local jurisdiction in the country that's doing it. It happens to be my favorite element of the code project. And what it is if you look at page 104 of your packet, and this is just one example, but you look at the first provision, 0.01.010, the words that follow that, enactment of Carson City Municipal Code, that's what's called a lead line. It is not part of the code. It is not a substantive provision. What it's intended to do there is just to show, just to help a reader identify this is what this provision is about. But what follows that is a parenthetical. And in this particular provision, it's a reference to Article 2, Sections 2.090 and 2.120 of the Carson City Charter. That is a reference to the legal authority for this board to adopt that particular provision. And if you look, each and every provision that is presented to you today includes that parenthetical. Now, that hasn't been done before, and that's kind of a pain in the behind. And whenever Dan complains about having to do that, I remind him that it was his idea. The value in that,
Save us so much time.
with the board's indulgence, I'll just explain for me why that's my favorite part of what we're doing here. And I'll go to outer space for a minute, but I promise we'll come back to Earth. The American idea of government that was revolutionary in 1776 was that all political power is with the people. It's not by virtue of being a king. It's not by virtue of having the biggest army. All political power lies with the people. Now, in forming a government, the people grant certain powers to their government. That's done through the United States Constitution. That's done through the Nevada Constitution. But it's not just a grant of, okay, you have all the political power. It's you have these specific, limited, enumerated powers as a government. We, the people, gave you that. Carson City and this board has a slightly different status because we're a political subdivision of the state of Nevada. So this board, gets its political power through the Nevada legislature, speaking on behalf of the people of Nevada and more importantly, Carson City. These are the powers that we're giving you. It's not all the power, but it's certain powers. The United States Congress, back when it believed it was a body of limited and enumerated powers, used to pass bills that specifically referenced constitutional provisions that gave them the power to pass the bill. Okay, we're going to regulate this, that, or the other, the trucking industry. We're going to reference Article 1, Section 8 of the Constitution, which gives us the power to regulate interstate commerce. Every single bill, the United States Congress used to reference that. At some point, they decided to stop doing that. And to me, that's unhealthy. Because the first thing that this board should be asking, and we as your attorney should be asking, anytime we look at an ordinance, is, do we have the power to do this? A fundamental question. We, operating as a limited government of enumerated powers, do we have the legal authority to do this? And that's what those parentheticals reference. So it's for this board. It's for this board to say, we as your attorneys have researched it. This is where we think your legal authority comes from. And you can verify for yourself. You can look it up and you can determine for yourself, do we have the power to do this? It's for the public to be 100% transparent. This is the legal authority we believe we have to enact this particular provision, and you can receive public comment on whether people agree with that or not. Completely 100% transparent. It has other benefits whenever you go, if you want to amend an ordinance. This will be a shortcut for future boards, future attorneys to have a starting place. This is the authority we were acting on. Now we want to change it. Do we have the power to do that change? And to me, this isn't a substantive value, but it's symbolic. It's symbolic that this board recognizes in every single provision that you are a government that is serving the people, that is exercising the power that the people have given you. So I don't know if I got us back to earth, but that was what I wanted to explain that. So there are three elements of the bill that are under the board's review today. The first element is the district attorney's preface to the code. Now, this is not substantive law. It is intended to be an explanation, kind of a user's guide for somebody who wants to read a code provision and understand it. This is how you read it. It's modeled after the LCB's preface to NRS. If you have a dictionary, it will have a preface that tells you, here's how you read all these things. Here's what these things mean and how to read it. It offers some insight into the history of the code revision and the objectives, what we're trying to accomplish. It makes reference, to certain abbreviations, to Code of Federal Regulations, NRS, that you're going to see throughout the code to help readers understand that. It does have a reference to the ordinance drafting manual, which is available, publicly available, and people can look at if they want to really get into the minutia of how an ordinance comes together and understand its meaning in that way. And so it's the best description of it is it's a user's guide for the Carson City Municipal Code. The preliminary chapter, excuse me, is title 0 of or chapter 0 of the code. Each of the provisions in this chapter is not really described as a substantive provision of law. It establishes the enactment of the code, some legal implications of adopting the code. It preserves rights. It says, look, we're revising the code. It's not changing anybody's rights. It's not changing Carson City's rights or authority or obligations. In many ways, it readopts certain provisions that are already existing in code. I would point out that section 0.01010 does replace sections 1.04.010 in the existing code. Excuse me. That old provision is replaced because of the fact that it cites section 2.120 of the Carson City Charter, but it cites old language that has since been replaced. So we had to go ahead and revise that to reflect the current language. And then we move to Title I, Title I, General Provisions. And we start with Chapter 1.02. Just by way of explanation, the reason we start with 1.02 and not 1.01 is to save space. There may come a time when it makes sense for this board or another board to adopt provisions that logically, sequentially fit in what would be a new 1.01. So we just reserve the space for that. The code, as you well know, is a living document, and changes are pretty commonly made. Section 1.02.030 is a new section. It just formally incorporates the Carson City Charter into the code. That is required by Section 2.120 of the Charter. It had not previously been done. So that's really just a kind of a formality that we took care of with that. Section 1.02.040 just ensures the continuity of code provisions. It does address a situation where we have a cross-reference to a section that is repealed, and we miss the cross-reference, okay? So there's something in Title 8 that says, except as provided in Section 1.10, a person shall not do this or that. And then later on, we repeal and replace 1.10 and just move it somewhere for sequential purposes. The question is that reference in Title 8 still valid? And that provision just says, yes, it is still valid, even if we happen to miss a cross-reference, which, of course, we'll try not to do. Section 1.02.050 addresses something that is easy to understand but kind of hard to articulate, and it has to do with flush lines. You'll see, and let me see if I can refer you to the page in your packet. It's page 107 in your packet toward the bottom. You'll see in the last sentence there are the two arrows. We don't like those. We don't like to use those. We try not to because they can be somewhat confusing for people. Sometimes it's inevitable, though. When you want to take certain text, and in this case, the text that follows those two arrows applies to the section as a whole, and it goes on. We want that text to apply to each paragraph that appears before it. So A, B, C, the text that follows the arrows applies to all A, B, C. So we could take that text and just repeat it at the end of A, at the end of B, and at the end of C. It's obviously more economical, more efficient, makes more sense if you can just say that text once. But that's what's called a flush line. And sometimes in drafting, it's just necessary to do that. So it makes logical sense because that text has to be connected to all those provisions. The remainder of the Title I provisions really just revise existing code provisions, putting it in the style that we're trying to mimic with NRS. But as I indicated, no substantive changes are made. The last thing I want to mention is Section 17, Roman numeral 17 of the bill, which is at page 114 of the packet. What the content of Chapter 1.04 is repealed and replaced in other provisions in 1.0 in Title I as we've presented it here. But Chapter 1.04 exists as a placeholder. So let's say we've got a person who knows a provision of 1.04 as it exists today, goes back in the code later after these provisions, if they are adopted, and see what the heck happened to 1.04. The editor's note that follows on page 115 after chapter 1.04 is a guide to that person to say, here's what happened to your chapter 104. It was repealed and replaced with this bill. And if they're searching it online, it should include a hyperlink that they can just click, and they will be taken to the bill that's before you today, and they can see exactly what happened. And if in their provision of 1.04, maybe it became, 0.010, and they can find it that way as it exists in the current code. So that would conclude my presentation. We're obviously happy, and Dan is, the real master of this. It's my idea and his labor, so he can certainly answer any question that you may have about this.
Does any member of the board have a question? Supervisor Giomi?
After a presentation by either you or Dan, I always feel like I'm getting out of an ordnance construction 101 class in college. But I appreciate that because it gives us the background we need to make good decisions. So I really do appreciate that. I'm somewhat of a policy wonk. I mean, coming from the fire service, you have policies that have to drive what you do because you can't, as a supervisor, be there to make decisions for people, and you have to have a structure, and it's what makes a quasi-military organization like that operate. So, so for me, I really appreciate the work you guys did with this. I appreciate the reference to the authority because I think that's really important. It gives us an opportunity to go back and say, hey, Dan and Jason aren't just pulling this stuff out of thin air. Not that we would believe that you would, but it gives us an opportunity to have that background. So when we're talking to people, we know where that authority comes from. So overall, I'm totally in support of this. I'm excited for it. I'm excited for the work that you did and appreciative of the work that you both did. So thank you.
Thank you.
Supervisor White?
Thank you. First of all, I apologize for not getting my questions out to you this week. Been pretty busy on some other things. I just have two questions. On page 107, most of the way down the page at line E, shall be deemed or shall be considered creates a legal fiction. What is a legal fiction?
I will do my best to answer, and Dan can supplement as he deems necessary. I'll say first that this business in here about must, may not, it's a verbatim recitation of a provision that exists in NRS. So it's like I say, kind of tried and true that this is something that'll work. Shall be deemed a legal fiction is something we accept as a fact for legal purposes only, in spite of the fact that it may not actually be a fact. But for legal consequences, we accept it as something that's true. It's completely out of context, and maybe Dan has a better example that's more in context. But there are times in criminal prosecutions when we will get a plea resolution with a defendant that requires the defendant to plead guilty to a charge that everybody knows the defendant didn't commit. So let's say we charge the defendant with theft. And, we're through our plea bargaining process, we're satisfied that there should be a reduction in charge. So the new charge that the person actually pleads guilty to is conspiracy to commit theft. That's a lesser charge, but it's a legal fiction because the person didn't actually conspire with somebody. But it's accepted as a fact because to gain the advantage or the benefit of a legal consequence that isn't the actual charge that occurred. Dan, I defer to Dan.
Thanks, Jason. I think that's a great example. I'll offer something else that's analogous in the context of the code. So, for example, if this board were to adopt in the future some sort of an ordinance that specifies for grandfathering purposes, or maybe this is a more apt description or an example. Suppose this board were to adopt an ordinance that says a person who applies for X, Y, or Z must submit their application by the close of business. And we all know the close of business for city operational purposes is typically normally 5 o'clock p.m. on a weekday. In the ordinance, you could say, for purposes of creating this legal fiction and to help facilitate, the submission of these applications for X, Y, or Z, the ordinance could have language embedded that says it shall be deemed as though the application was submitted by the close of business, so long as you submit it by 11:59 p.m. that day. So that basically captures all of the scope of applications that may have come in post 5, but still within that calendar day. And it's not at the close of business, but this board will consider it as though it was submitted at the close of business. It's purely to create this functional, operational, real-life play in operation.
Thank you. Moving to page 109. At the third line there, 1.02.130. When I looked at the city charter on the legislative website, I didn't find Article 3, subsection 2.101. So do we have a typo there?
I don't know that.
We can double check it. We'll go through every section and every citation, especially that one you just noted on the record, Supervisor White, prior to bringing it back to the second reading.
All right, thank you.
Supervisor Schutte?
Thank you. This is a wonderful document, and I really appreciate it. And I learned so much. And so kudos on the citation of the Carson City Municipal Code. It was really great to have it so spelled out in terms of how it's laid out and the application. So thank you. And also, thank you, and the email I had sent, my question, so page 108, 102.06, so the singular number includes the plural number, and the plural includes a singular, as well as the present tense includes the future tense. So while you told me what that meant, can you reiterate what that means? Because I think it's really important that folks understand that.
Sure.
Thank you.
Happy to. And I think the best way to try to explain it is the way you asked the question was, can you give me an example of where plural means a singular and singular means the plural has meaning? And so I'll offer the two examples that we provided you in an email. First, going from the plural to the singular. There's a provision in Title 18, and I'll just try to paraphrase it, I won't get it exactly, that says accessory garages are only permitted when there is a primary structure on a piece of property. And that's what it says, accessory garages in the plural. So let's say we have a person who puts up a garage on vacant property, one garage, and there's no primary structure associated with it. And Hope tells him, you can't do that. And the guy says, oh, yes, I can, because I've only put up one garage. Your code provision says garages. It doesn't prohibit singular garage. Well, then we guide Hope back to this provision and say, no, by saying garages, we're also prohibiting a singular garage. On the flip side, there's another code provision that talks about lot line adjustments, and it says the board is authorized to or charge a fee, or a fee shall be charged as established by the board. So that's a singular, a fee. So hypothetically, this is not how it works. They actually charge a single fee for lot line adjustments. But hypothetically, maybe the board wanted to say, we really want to do two fees. We want to do a fee for community development's time in reviewing the lot line adjustment, but we want to charge another fee that captures, all the other things that have to happen if there's a lot line adjustment, revised parcel map, a recalculation of property taxes, a change to GIS. So instead of charging a fee, we're charging two fees, and you get an applicant who says, I don't have to pay both fees, I'm only paying one because your code only says you can charge a fee. That would be an example where a singular authorizes actually a plural fees in the discretion of the board.
Okay, I don't see any further questions on this, but just again want to say thank you, I think. Some of you might go, oh boy, but the wisdom of the board when we were here in 2019 with the strategic goal of rewriting all of this. And I think this is the first demonstration of the labor of that decision. I'm very proud that the board then saw that wisdom to try and make it a better read for each and every one of us that have to implement things, for the staff, and then more importantly for the public. The parentheses at the end of each section telling us where the reference is I think is phenomenal, and I hope that it shows why Carson City is a model for others to follow, because I think all of us here are always looking for the why. Why am I even doing this? Why am I here? Why do I have to decide on this issue? Because this says so. So thank you for all that effort. I know it was a lot of work, and I just really enjoyed your preface to say the why, because I think that's always important too for people. So thanks for the good start. And somehow I have a feeling this means many, 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 many more hours to make the whole rest of the code look this way. But again, just on the record to thank you for sharing in the vision with the Board of Supervisors, because I think it's a joint vision.
Thank you, Mayor.
So thank you. With that, I see that Supervisor Jones would like to make the motion.
Yeah,
Oh, go ahead.
do this all in one, or do we have to do?
You can make it as two motions if you'd like, or one motion and read both, your choice.
I move to approve the business impact statement as presented, and I move to introduce the first reading on bill number 104.
Do I have a second? I have a motion and a second for the approval of the business impact statement and the first reading of bill number 104. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, say no. Motion carried unanimously. I hate to say, get to work on the rest, right? Careful what we start here. Okay, with that, we're going to move on to agenda item 12B to determine whether we want to participate in an amendment to our distributor settlement agreements. Mr. Woodbury, would you just give us a high-level briefing on this?
Yes, and I won't repeat any communications that are privileged communications. We've obviously had quite a bit of discussion about this, but what's before you today is an item that would either approve participation or not approve participation in two settlement agreements in regard to the opioid litigation. The first settlement is with three distributors of opioids that are named in the current litigation. The second is a settlement with Janssen, J&J, Johnson & Johnson, all the same company. As it sets forth, the settlement would be for the sums that are before you in exchange for a complete release of claims as to any of the issues that are raised in the litigation at this time. I've reviewed the documentation, and it's, in my opinion, it's satisfactory, and we do recommend approval to the board. The outside counsel law firm that represents us, Egglet Adams, also recommends that the board participate in the settlements. So that would be our recommendation today.
Does any member have a question? Supervisor White?
Thanks again, and sorry again for not getting these questions out to you. Just two questions. On page 728, it talks about qualifying block grantees. Now, I saw in various areas, such on page 124, there's some discussion of subdivisions of claimants. Do you have an insight of what a qualifying block grantee is?
I don't know if I can answer that question reliably today.
Seems complicated.
Well, it is. I can tell you, and I don't mean to lead us astray, but the settlement funds come to the state of Nevada. And in addition to the distribution to local governments outright, there was legislation in 2021 that created a fund. So part of the money that the state retains and doesn't give to local governments will be retained in this fund. And the purpose of the fund allows local governments to put together an application for a grant of money from that fund. So there is the possibility, if Carson City wanted to pursue that it could get to that particular money.
Okay.
I have to tell you, Supervisor White, I don't know if that particular provision is addressing that fund.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I think there's also the provision in the rules that deals with required repayment of federal dollars
Yes.
and state dollar match. So the provision is discussing the required Medicaid reimbursement for people that received services that were billed and covered by Medicaid. So there is a block of money from the overall settlement that must go to the repayment of the Medicaid. So it is complex, like you said, because there's pockets and required distributions before it can get to the,
I just didn't see where they called out
right,
who specifically is a qualifying block grantee.
right. So,
And then over to our packet, number 8, I guess it is, where under the distribution settlement agreement, E, where it talks about an allocation statute. It kind of explains it. Do you have any idea what our legislature might do with that?
Right. I do think I have an answer to that question. Some states, so this is a global settlement agreement. Some states, we did our allocation agreement through an agreement, with the state of Nevada and the local jurisdictions. Some states actually enacted legislation that basically said, this is how the money's going to be distributed. So that particular provision wouldn't apply to us because we have the agreement and not the statute.
Got it. All right. That's all from
any
me.
other questions? I see no other question. Oh, I'll accept a motion. And will comment that it's rare to see a rate reduction for a lawyer. So I want to, sorry. I just thought we should have a little levity today, but we're actually with this approval, reducing our price to the lawyer. So I thought that was good. So Supervisor Schutte, did you want to, or Supervisor Giomi, sorry, you make the motion.
Giomi, whatever it takes.
Yeah.
I move to approve Carson City's participation in the distributor settlement agreement and the Janssen settlement agreement, and authorize the mayor to execute the documents necessary to memorialize that participation on behalf of Carson City.
I second.
I have a motion and a second for approval. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, say no. Let the record reflect the motion was unanimous. Thank you so much. Thank you, Mr. Woodbury, for your time this morning. Okay, we're going to move on to agenda item 13A, which is discussion and possible action regarding the city's cost allocation plan. Ms. Russell, we received late material. I'm sure you give us an overview on that, please.
Yes, good morning.
Morning.
So I have it for any questions, but just to go over with for the public, the purpose of the cost allocation plan is to charge the special revenue and enterprise funds for the service of the general fund. So saying that if those other special revenue and enterprise funds were standalone entities, they would have to have an HR department, a treasurer, an IT department, an attorney at the DA's office. So we're charging all of those funds for those services. We do hire a third-party consultant to come in and allocate based on what the departments do, all of their services citywide. And she's been working with us for years. She does update with each of the department heads every year. And this year, there was a little error in the clerk's department with Eagle Eye Lori Cott, of course.
Okay. I love cost allocation, but you know those.
Yes, so that is what the revised information that I sent out as late material includes. You'll see the clerk's line is the only line that changed, but of course that changed the bottom line as well. And I believe the total change was about $30,000. So less cost allocation by $30,000. Do you have any questions? You want me to go through anything else?
Any member of the board have a specific question? Supervisor White?
I don't really have a
Comment?
a specific question, but yeah, I do have a comment. So I do understand what this is all about. I understand how it works. But honestly, I can't buy into 709 pages of passing money around back and forth between one another to get this done. So I can't support this. But thank you for your work.
And so just so you're aware and everybody else, she allocates it citywide. Like
Understood.
each department, like my department is charged to the sheriff's department, but we're both in the general fund. So you're right, it doesn't make sense to move money around in the general fund. But these other funds where they have specific uses and requirements, it does
Right.
make sense.
Thank
I
you.
mean, we know
Did
what it
anyone
And
costs
I
to-
understand.
We
Thank
know
you.
what it costs to run these different departments, put that money in there and run them. I don't think we need 709 pages.
Thank you so much. Does any other member have a question or comment? Okay, so I just want to say that I understand what Supervisor White is saying, and you're right, and we don't charge within the general fund. And the real question becomes, it's not whether we do this, it's what's behind this. And so the objective is to determine whether the general fund is going to pay the administrative expenses for the enterprise funds. We can do that. You're not incorrect. We could make that decision that we were not going to charge administrative fees to the other accounts, which you would think in turn means those accounts could do more services because they wouldn't have administrative expenses put in them. And so there, we are making a statement, but I look at this, if the general fund does not recover a portion of its administrative expense, then we can't do, the capital fund has a difficulty. It's so integral to the entire processes that we do that it would be difficult to just today say, I'm not going to collect $5 million that's due the general fund for the work done by the finance department, the human resource department, the cutting of checks, and to parcel it out and put 1/4 of a position in each of those offices. It makes much more sense to centralize the duty, because I think it's less expensive to the taxpayer overall to do that than the method to split it up. I really think this is cheaper. So for that reason, I'm going to support the cost allocation plan. But I did want to put on the record that I understood and that Mr. White was right. We could make a different decision. So Supervisor Giomi?
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think it's, whether it's 709 pages or 109 pages, I think it also comes down to a matter of fairness. And should we be charging out of our property tax and C-tax, which is general fund money, for services that the water users pay for? when not everyone who pays property tax is a water user. So I think it comes back to, honestly, to a matter of fairness. And that example extends to wastewater, it extends to, heck, the ambulance fund. And if you don't use the ambulance, why would the general fund, which is the general community, pay for dispatching? So anyway, I think it's a matter of fairness too.
Okay. So with that, I will accept a motion. And the motion, please indicate that it is the updated version that was done in late material.
I move to accept the cost allocation plan for fiscal year ending June 30th, 2021 for use in preparing the fiscal year 2023 Carson City budget, and that the correct document is, for the final cost allocation is in the late material.
I have a motion and a second for approval of the cost allocation plan as submitted with late material. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, say no. Let the record reflect that Mr. White voted no. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we're now going to move on to agenda item 13B, which is discussion and possible action to adopt on second reading, bill number 101, authorizing the issuance of general obligation limited water and refunding bonds. Are there any changes that have been between the first reading and?
Not on this one, no changes.
No changes. We've heard this several times, but does any member have a question? If not, I'll accept a motion, please. Supervisor
I move to
White.
adopt on second reading bill number 101, ordinance number 2022-3.
I second.
Motion and a second on bill number 101, ordinance number 2022-3. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, say no. Motion carried unanimously. We're going to make you earn your money this morning, right? Okay. We're going to move on to agenda item number 13C. This is discussion and possible action to adopt an emergency ordinance authorizing the issuance of general obligation sewer bonds, sewer refunding bonds. Just a briefing, if you'd like, on why we ended up changing this one to an emergency. So this will be a first reading and a second reading today. Thank you.
Of course, for the record, Ryan Henry from Sherman and Howard. I serve as bond counsel to the city. The last time before you, you saw a substantively identical ordinance authorizing these sewer refunding bonds, but we identified it in consultation with the district attorney's office an inconsistency with the name of the bonds within the agenda materials. The agenda materials refer to them as wastewater bonds when the bond ordinance officially names them sewer refunding bonds. So for that reason, rather than have second reading, have different agenda language than first reading in consultation with the district attorney's office, to do this in accordance with the law, we determined it was best to come before you and present this as an emergency ordinance, which may be adopted under the charter with unanimous consent. And since it pertains to bonds, it may also be adopted as if an emergency exists. Now, for the record, this isn't an emergency as you'd normally think of an emergency. With bonds, it's an emergency because interest rates move quickly. So it allows an abbreviated process to adopt an ordinance like this so that we are able to move forward and sell the bonds once the ordinance is effective. And I'd turn it over to Mr. Yu if you'd want to add anything to that. But if anyone has any questions, as I mentioned, the only changes to this ordinance were allowing it to be adopted in one reading. There were no substantive changes to any of the terms of the ordinance that you saw before you on January 20th.
And
Thank
the
you.
public has been properly noticed and aware all along the way. So I feel very confident that even the public would like us to save interest rates, monies every day, as
And
we
I-
all know what's going on.
Yes, and I
Nationally
will-
right now, it's like,
yes,
uh-oh,
and
hurry.
I will add, when we initially put together the agenda and put together this item, interest rates had climbed 0.25%. So we were a little stressed, and we wanted to get this done before they climbed too high. The last week they have come back down, and John Peterson's on the line if you have any specific questions. But we will be going to sale on these if approved on the 10th. So just 7 days. So we're hoping they stay low.
Okay, and I don't see any other questions, so I'll accept a motion, please.
I move to adopt emergency ordinance number 105, ordinance number 2022-4.
Second.
I have a motion and a second for the emergency ordinance, Bill number 105, ordinance 2022-4. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. The motion carried unanimously. That's a good word. As required. Thank you. We will now move on to agenda item 13D, which is discussion and possible action to adopt on second reading Bill number 103, an ordinance authorizing the issuance of general obligation capital improvement bonds. Ms. Russell, has there been any change since first reading?
No change since first reading.
Is there any questions of the members of the board? Seeing none, I'll accept a motion. Supervisor Giomi?
I move to adopt on second reading Bill number 103, ordinance number 2022-5.
Second.
I have a motion and a second on second reading for Bill number 103, ordinance number 2022-5. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. Motion carried unanimously. Thank you, and pray to the interest gods. I expect good news at the second meeting in February with how we did, right? Somewhere in there. Thank you. Okay, we're now going to move on to agenda item 13E, which is discussion and possible action regarding our assumptions to be used in the preparation of the budget to set our tax rate. Ms. Russell?
Yes, thank you. I will try to be brief. But this motion before you is really to approve the tax rate that we're going to use for fiscal year '23. However, while we do it, I have an opportunity to let you know where we're going with the budget this year and make sure you're all in agreement, because this is a combined document and we definitely want your input. Okay, so with that, it looks like the projected assessed value is a 6% increase this year. We are capped for tax rate purposes at 3% for residential, and it will be 8% for commercial in 2023. We have been limited with the commercial for the last several years because there is a secondary calculation where we have to use 2 times CPI, and over the last several years, CPI has been very, very low. This year, it was actually 4.7%, so that's why we can use the 8%. And then the other calculation is the 10-year average of assessed value. And during the Great Recession, we had negative, the assessed value came down so much that our 10-year average was actually negative for a lot of years. That is now positive again, it's 4%. So thank you. At the end of it, things are looking up. My projected increase for property taxes, I'm looking at 4.5% for '23. So I always go over the taxable value, and this is just an example because our tax system is so hard to understand that I just wanted to go through this real quick. So basically this is saying you build a new house in 2021, that's your taxable value, your assessed value is 35% of it, and if we take the 3.57 rate times the assessed value, you get $3,124. You're going to pay that, no ands, ifs, or buts. It's a new house. There's no limit. In 2022, we have an assessed value increase of 5.5%. So then we have the same tax rate, and it comes in at $3,296. However, because of that 3% cap, we're making 3% over the prior year bill, so now we can only charge $3,217. So that $78 is abated. It's gone. In '23, we only increased by 1%. So as you can see, again, if we take the assessed value times the 3.57, we're still over the 3% cap. So again, we can only charge $3,314, and there's still money that's abated, even with only a 1% assessed value. But if we have only a 1% the following year, then our tax bill is 3.57, the rate times the assessed value is lower than the cap. However, we can still only charge the assessed value times that 3.57. So we would only be able to charge the $3,362. So in that instance, in 2024, that's when we would look at actually raising the rate. Because if we raise the rate here to the 3.66, you see that we can collect 3.447. However, the 3% cap is 3,413. So we would be able to collect a little more, the 3,413. So if we're having revenue struggles and we need the extra revenue, but we're in a declining assessed value, we might be able to get a little more revenue by increasing the rate at that time. Currently, our assessed values have been just going up and up and up, so it doesn't make sense to increase the rate. I did do a 1 cent increase in the rate, just a projection to see where we came out with the treasurer's office, where they take all of the properties citywide and do this calculation. And the total revenue we would get basically from the new property is about $8,400. The other $203,000 would be abated. So again,
There's no value in.
There's really no value in raising the rate. So this is where I'm looking at total revenue and where it's been in the past and where it's going to hopefully end up in fiscal '23. It looks like for 19 and 20, you can see the increase is 5.5% and 6.3%. Those increases are new property. I mean, this is all property tax revenue.
Okay,
Yes.
I thought you said all revenue.
No, I'm sorry, all the property taxes, because we were just
Thank you.
looking at one house, so
Right,
now we're
right.
looking at all the houses.
Thank you.
So I'm projecting in 4.1% by the end of fiscal year '22, and that's just based on what we build. So as new houses, are on the market and paying taxes, that 4.1% might increase for the end of fiscal year '22 as well. And then 4.5%, as I said, for fiscal year '23. Are there any questions? Mr. White asked me to add a few more slides. And this was to show the property tax rates, the historical. As you can see, they've been lingering around 3.52 to 3.57 for the last 10 years. And then this is the statewide rates and how we compare to other counties. There was one change this year, so I don't think many counties are changing their rates right now. I think most of them are sticking with where they are. But as you can see, we are one of the lower rates, so there's a lot of counties that are at the max.
And can I just point out that a lot of those counties, Eureka, Humboldt, particularly Eureka and Humboldt, get a significant amount of mining revenue.
Yes.
Significant.
Yes, they do.
They had a point in time, Supervisor Giomi, Eureka didn't have any tax. They had so much money from the mines.
Yeah, they abolished-
The
they had no property
legislature
tax.
actually had to force them to a 15 cent to say you have to have some. So it's really
Wow.
kind of an interesting anecdote, but too bad, yeah, we don't have an industry that provides that to us. But,
Yes. So if there's no questions on taxes, we'll move on to the consolidated tax projection. And I've been doing this for the last couple of years because it's hard. I mean, we used to just say 2%, 3%, but in the last couple of years with COVID, it is so hard to project what we think these consolidated taxes are going to do. They're mostly made up of sales and excise taxes, so they're our most volatile source of revenue. I did increase by 3% for November and December because I figure those are Christmas months and people are going to spend money for their families. And in November, we actually did get the numbers since I created the slideshow, and they increased 4.7%, the taxable sales. So we're at 3.9, an increase in consolidated taxes right now. However, as we go into January and the rest of the year, we don't have the legislature in town this year, and so that's always affects our sales taxes. So I assume it will go down a little bit, also because of the inflation lately and all the stimulus money is dried up. I'm really projecting some decreases for January through June. I do expect we'll recover fairly quickly by June. simply because we're still seeing builders come in and build houses like crazy. I mean, we are, and we still have the US Parkway that's just 23 miles away, so people are still moving here, and so I think we're still going to see an offset to the reduced spending there. I am projecting 2% increase for fiscal year 23, which is really conservative. As you can see in 21, our increase was 19%. This year, I'm projecting it to be flat for fiscal year 22. So I am projecting a little increase for 23. I keep getting beat up with the money that keeps coming in. Last year, I think I projected about a 2% increase, and it ended up, being 19%. So I'm projecting a little increase.
It's the better direction to be wrong in, though. If you're going to be wrong, it was the right
yes,
way.
Being under is definitely the better
Right.
one to be wrong in.
Yep.
And I hope I'm wrong. I hope it's 19%
And
again.
we're backing you up on that, so you don't have to take all the heat yourself.
Well, that's what this meeting's about. If you don't trust me there, we can reduce that. No. All right, so this just shows how much revenue will be coming in, and I'm actually, I mean, during the recession or prior to the recession, our high in consolidated taxes was 27 million. And I just can't believe the last couple of years, it's mind-boggling. But we're obviously doing very well. You can see my 22 budget is much less than what came in for 21, and what at this point I'm projecting is going to come in for 22, even with the decreases in January and February. So I think we're going to stay pretty consistent at the 41 million for a bit. I do this slide every year because I do a very preliminary projection. We are still working on the budget. We're still putting numbers in and changing things as we get new information from the state and insurance and everywhere. But this is a very preliminary projection of where I think we're going to be. In 23, I believe we'll have about $13 million for capital expenditure, which will help close that deferred maintenance gap we have. It'll help with our space issues. So that's a nice number. And then I do the next 5 years so that you can see that if we left the fund balance at 10%, we'd still have some capital each of the following years. And the way that I budget, we budget very conservatively. So revenues are under budgeted and expenses are over budgeted. I don't budget for any termination savings. It's like the person in that position is there forever. And we know that never happens. So I expect revenues to be a little less, or revenues to be a little more, expenses to be a little less. So these numbers should be better than this is projecting. I also heard your question, Mr. Giomi. And if we wanted to increase the ending fund balance by 0.5% every year, we would just reduce the capital expenditures by $500,000. Mm-hmm. It's about $500,000 to increase that by 0.5% each year.
Can you tell me in your projection model for that what you're putting in the contingency? Because we've had quite a bit that we have had in contingency.
Yes.
That we maybe don't have to impact capital, but yet up the ending fund balance as Supervisor Giomi's suggesting.
Yeah, I really like the way I upped ending fund balance this year because it was during augmentation, so it was extra money already in the bank. So I might try to do that next year as well because it's very easy to hit that 10% when the money's already in the bank and we set it aside.
So it doesn't change things. I mean, what I actually asked is if we took 23 to 10 even, so dropped it 0.21%, took it to 10 even.
Okay.
And then went 0.5% each year thereafter.
So yeah, so we would have 250,000 more this year, about. And then
more in capital.
More in capital this
which we
year.
could move over to extraordinary maintenance if we wanted.
Right.
And then
we'd have.
And then we'd be at 10.5 and 24, and that'd be 400,000.
Yes.
Or 4 million, excuse
4
me,
million,
4 million.
yes.
Then in 25,
200,
we'd be at 11, and
250,000.
we'd be 2.2 million.
Yes.
26, we'd be at 11.5.
Yes.
And be at 1.25, and 27, we'd be at 11.5.
27 would be at 12, right?
12, right, yeah.
Yeah,
And that
and it'd
would
be
put us at just
1.2
about
some,
1.2
yeah.
some.
Right.
Still decent numbers, and that brings up our ending fund balance
Yes, yes.
to 12% by, 5 years down the road, roughly, 4 years down the road.
Right. Right.
Okay,
Since
I know we
did-
don't have to
since we
decide
did-
now, but I really think it's
Right.
worth considering.
Yeah. And since we did set that money aside in our augmentations this year, that 10% is there. It's set aside. And when I build my 23 budget, I don't have to worry about it. It's already there.
Right.
So,
So
with-
any
with
increase
the
in revenue that we
contingency and
get-
savings,
We could push over.
Correct.
we could push it over and continue to increase it
Yeah.
that way.
Well,
But I also wanted to mention, back to your question, Lori, I did include 1.5 million for supplemental budget requests that might be coming in. There's also 150,000 because we're negotiating with a union. So we want to make sure we have a little extra set aside for that. There is $500,000 in contingency. We included the bond issuance we just talked about that'll be coming out of the CTAX fund. And then we also included in the out years, 25, 6, and 7, those firefighters once we have that fire station that's operational.
That's in here?
Yes.
And where?
That's why our capital's
yeah,
down.
that's- And
Yeah.
where's our extraordinary maintenance fund?
Extraordinary
number in there?
maintenance, we can put whatever we want in there.
I mean, what's there now?
Oh, there's about
You know.
$8 million there.
Yeah. Million?
Not
We
$8,
just
$9
moved
million.
that big
We
chunk
just
at the
moved it
last
over.
meeting.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's why I didn't remember what we took it to. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, food for thought in my mind. I think the ending fund balance is important. The extraordinary maintenance fund is important as well, because that money, once it goes in there, can't come out except for what it's implied, extraordinary maintenance.
Right.
And let's face it, most of the, I'll say, emergencies that we're going to run into are going to fall into an extraordinary maintenance category. An elevator breaks, a fire truck gets in a crash, an HVAC unit goes down in the jail. I mean, all of those things fit under extraordinary maintenance, which, gives me a little more comfort to have that amount of money there. But the ending fund balance is our checkbook.
Yes.
And
It's our rainy day fund. So it's
that's the only
important.
way we have. We used to have a rainy day fund, but the legislature took that away in 2008 or 2009 when they pretty much stripped everybody's funds. Anyway, I think it's worth discussing. I think, having a good ending fund balance, even if we're at 16%, it's only 2 months worth of, right? A little over
Yes.
2 months worth of
It's-
revenue.
No, it's 2 months worth of expenses.
So, we're now sitting at, what, a month and a week maybe at 10%? So, anyway,
So I think also as the next month or two, as we're building the budget, and maybe what we can help in the assumption for you is that it is our intention for you to move the ending fund balance up, because like on your slide, we already got 40, 60,000, whatever it was, in a higher answer that we just got. So as the additional month or two's revenue comes in, if it's higher, if you would just push that to ending fund balance, and not adjust anywhere else and say we got more revenue than anticipated, right? So that might be an opportunity as the next month or two comes to do those out years and push some more into the ending fund balance. So unless I'm missing it, I think we're all
I think that-
interested in upping our ending fund balance.
I think that works. And the other thing it does for us is that if it's sitting in ending fund balance, it's, if we have something that comes before us that we have to weigh against having that ending fund balance or funding it, it allows us the ability to do that, especially if that ending fund balance is a little bit higher. So if there's a real need in the sheriff's office to supplement their budget for X, Y, and Z program that we absolutely believe needs to be implemented, we have the ability to do that. Whereas in those cases, if we kick that money over to extraordinary maintenance, we can't pull it back for an operational item.
Right. And I completely agree. I think it's a great idea during second round of augmentations, we can look at whatever savings we have and push some of those to fund balance.
Okay. Keep going.
So just real quick, we're going to go over the calendars so you guys know what to expect. Today I'm presenting our assumptions to you. And CIP requests are due from departments tomorrow. So we'll start building our huge wish list spreadsheet. And then we're meeting about that in March. we're going to get the base budget projections out to the departments by February 11th. So they have a few weeks to look at our work and make sure we haven't made any mistakes. I always like a second set of eyes. The state does some revenue projections that they will get to us by February 15th. That's their preliminary first round. And then on March 15th, they'll give us their second round of final projections. And we use these as a guide. We actually take the most conservative number, whatever we come up with or whatever the state has, just to make sure, again, we come in under budget, as the mayor said. The worst thing is to have revenue shortfalls, and then we've already spent the money. Like I said, our CIP discussion is going to be March 9th, and that's with all the directors where we all rank what's most important to us, and then we bring it to you for approval. And that's in April. And the budget revisions, we've asked the departments to get them back to us by March 4th, but the drop dead date is March 11th. And then we're having an interim finance IFC committee to go over the supplemental requests that come back with the budget revisions, and that'll be on March 30th. And again, this is to come up with recommendations for the supplemental, the positions, and the operating expenses that departments need to bring back to you guys for approval. So the tentative budget is due on April 15th. Always is, and we always submit that without this board's approval. It is the base budget. It's got no supplementals, no capital in it, but we submit it. And then we bring that budget back on the second meeting in April to discuss what we've submitted. We discuss any supplementals and capital that you guys approve to add. And then the final budget is going to be due on June 1st. This board has to, of course, give their blessing to the final budget, and that will be on May 19th. So that's really the process. If you guys have any concerns or questions, my door is always open. Please give me a call or let me know.
Does anyone have any questions? I don't see any. I will accept a motion for our tax rate to submit to the Department of Taxation. To do that. Supervisor Schutte?
I move to direct staff to use $3.57 as the property tax rate in preparing the fiscal year 2023 Carson City budget.
I have a motion and a second for the approval of $3.57 for the property tax rate for next fiscal year. All those in favor say aye. Any opposed say no. Motion carried unanimously. Thank you very much for all your hard work. And
Thank you very much.
like I said to Jason, now comes all the hard work.
Yeah, it's just starting.
making the
It's just
budget.
starting,
Yeah.
but we'll get going. Thanks.
There you go. Thank you again for such a good job. Yeah. So we are now on to agenda item number 14, which is our non-action items. Ms. Paulson, do you have any items to bring forward?
I think the only thing I had for today was just a reminder that our board retreat will be on February 25th, starting at 8:30.
Even that day we have to go early? No, sorry.
We have a full
At
day.
the Adams Hub?
At the Adams Hub.
Adams Hub, okay, thanks.
I'm just giving you a bad time. Does any other member of the board have a report to share? So I will let you know that I attended, I'm the representative on the Tahoe Transportation District. That board is working extremely hard. I'm not sure if many are aware, but over this last year, the board was expanded to be 14 individuals. That is quite a hefty board. And we work very hard to see if we can come to consensus, because it's got California and Nevada, representatives from both governors' offices, things like that. And I will say that I think TDD is in a pivotal moment in its structure and where it's going to go and how it's going to survive. I'm not sure what revenue options are going to be exercised or come to fruition to look, but it seems strange that Carson City is actually part of the discussion for this, because you think of it being Lake Tahoe, but we are technically within the federal legislation to that, so I sit as your member on it. But if any of you have any wonderful ideas on how you think we can help sustain the Tahoe Transportation District, I do think Lake Tahoe is important to Carson City. I think it's a huge tourist draw. And so I just want to preset that there may be a request for a small funding from each of the jurisdictions, and some a lot more. Obviously, we have very little with only 8 miles within the whole jurisdiction, but I just,
3 residences.
yeah, 3 or 4, or one has 2 or something.
2 properties, but
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, again, we have very little impact, but I think it's really beneficial to our residents. So the impact of Lake Tahoe is huge. So I just want to prepare this board, and I'm not saying it's going to be a request for $10,000 or something to help support that overall planning. I just want to kind of plant the seed for each of you. If you have a direction or things, privately let me know or something, but just to put that on the record that that's what was happening in TDD. Anybody else have any reports of their committees? Supervisor Schutte?
Couple of things. I've received input from folks who really appreciate the opportunity to look at and provide ideas for the Highway 50 corridor. And I stopped by on Wednesday, and it was just a great presentation, and lots of little sticky notes that people had come to add ideas. And so just encouraging the public to fill out the survey and share your ideas about this wonderful grant money that we have and the vision for the corridor. Also received information or a letter requesting information on how can a concerned group of the public really help or encourage the city to incorporate green building design in future projects. And so with right now, the Planning Commission and everyone going through the Title 18, it's a great time for that. And so they have been encouraged to contact Hope Sullivan, and so just to share their voice, which is awesome. And then finally, at the Parks and Rec meeting this week, Carson Ridge Disc Golf gave a presentation, and I think that's quite the gem out there over by the rifle range, the shooting range, and the V&T Railroad. It's really interesting, and apparently Carson City, we have quite a gem in the disc golf world, and that is more and more people are getting involved with disc golf. It's kind of like pickleball, lots of folks are really enjoying that. And so there's a small nonprofit that they've been helping, I guess, with maintenance. And, I would just encourage folks who love disc golf or pickleball or whatever it is, so those special passions that you have, to really get involved with the community, get involved with helping with maintenance and fundraising and all of that, because the city, we're balancing tax revenue, capital needs, all of that with recreation and other ways that people enjoy their time. And so it's how do we get the most? And I think we can get the most out of community involvement. And so, check out these gems that we have in this town. It was really cool.
I'd
Supervisor
like to chime in
White?
on that. I watched that whole process when the very first idea was hatched that we should have a disc golf. And frankly, I thought the logistics would burn that group down. But they persevered, they dug their feet in, and they made that happen. It really shows the tenacity and the interest in that sort of thing. And then when you drive out there and that parking lot is full, I think this is an example where we do need to be careful that we have good land use. But this is an example where we need to make it easier for people to get this kind of stuff done. I mean, weren't they like 4 years from the first time they ever said a word before they ever turned a shovel out there? It's incredible how hard it was for that group to get this done.
And to that, that's where really building the base of the folks doing the work, it's so important. And we spoke to that a little bit at the meeting.
I think so I do sit on the Park Foundation. I want to disclose that. I think one of the major hurdles that all groups of citizens have is tax implications and the way to fundraise money. So you're right that it took a long time, and I was very proud that the Park Foundation formed, recognizing that we have lots of groups in town that are willing to donate and really do well by their community, but they don't really want to write a check to the city, even though it's the same tax deduction. They don't want to give the money to the city. They want to give it to an organization that they just feel is going to protect and do with the money that activity. So that really helped that disc golf group. I got to say, I think it was 5 or 6 individuals, and then we really had a couple of businesses that stepped up to the plate and gave the supplies for like cost and helped with the labor. And then even our own Parks Department, I want to give them kudos because they had some staff that went out there and helped pour cement. But really a wonderful community project that came together from a vision. And then I think they're working really hard, if I'm not mistaken, because one of their members sits on our Park Foundation board. I think we're also trying to help Carson City get on the map a little bit more and run a tournament out there. That's really going to grow the sport and grow Carson City as that outdoor place to come and enjoy. So I look forward to at some point having a tournament that we can announce. So not that I'm going to be thrilled as the treasurer to handle all the money from the tournament, but it's worth it. It's worth all of our time to have something so good. And like you said, kudos to that group. Supervisor Jones?
This late material we got today on deciding who can talk tonight, is this firm? I mean, is this a decision of Dan's?
No.
Are we going to vote on this tonight?
Mr. Jones, the Board of Supervisors will act on that letter. We'll make the decision
Tonight?
as the board. Tonight.
Okay.
Tonight, yeah. Cannot be considered during this discussion item. Anybody else? Okay, I don't see anything else under item 14. We will not have a closed session today, so we are going to recess. We will reconvene sharply at 5. So please be here on time so we can get going. It might be a lengthy evening, so I appreciate your attentiveness, and we'll see you at 5. We stand in recess. Thank you.